All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Beehive Biker Podcast. Here we have Garey Maib. He contributed a couple episodes ago when we had Gary Hunting on. So we're glad to have him on. Gary's been a good friend of mine for the last several years. He's actually the big influence in me riding a Harley Davidson. It's kind of a funny story. I think it's one worth sharing because after the podcast the other day where I brought up this story in passing, I didn't call Gary's wife by name, and she was pretty offended. So we're gonna share Paula's story today. So Gary and I met several years ago working on a job site, and I saw on his computer that he had these pictures of motorcycles, right? And what was your thoughts when I asked you? I was like, "Hey, you ride?"
Yeah, it was kind of funny because so when you meet people that ride, they either I don't ride anymore. I bought one and I don't use it or something like that. And so when you're like, "Hey, do you ride?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you want to go?" I'm like, "Sure." And you're like, "Okay, well, we should go after work." I'm like, "Okay." And then we got off early that day, and you had called me and said, "Hey, have you talked to your wife yet?" I'm like, "No, she's still at work." And you called again. "Hey, what's your wife say?" I'm like, "We'll go. I'll talk to her when she gets home." It was funny because I'm like, "Uh-oh." I didn't, that was the first time we met, so I didn't understand or not understand, but I didn't know if you were going to be like.
Let's scoot this forward for you.
One of those, clingers where you're like, "Okay. Hope he doesn't know where I live."
I don't know.
It worked out well.
That's just the person I am. Like, I meet somebody and we have something in common. I just like talking to people, getting to know people. I can't help it. My wife just rolled her eyes when I came home that day and was like, "Hey, so we're gonna go out to dinner with somebody from work." And she's like, "Well, okay. Who is it?" I'm like, "Well, I met him today."
Yeah. That's what I said. "Do you want to go on a ride with somebody I met?" She's like, "Oh, okay. Where are we going to go?" I said, "We'll go up to the grill." She's like, "Cool."
Yeah.
I said, "His wife's going to go too, but she's pregnant, so she has to drive." Like, "Okay."
Yeah.
And I have to correct you. In my phone, you're Fury Jeremy.
Oh, it's Fury Jeremy? It's not Jeremy Fury?
Nope.
Well, then why is everyone telling me it's Jeremy Fury?
I don't know. You're Fury Jeremy.
Maybe when it switches over from you have Android, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe when it switches over to like you share it to
it's Fury, Jeremy, or Jeremy, Fury.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it like flip flops it when you share it to other like phone brands or something.
It might be. And Josh in my phone is Mr. Awesome Josh. He put it in my phone, so when I share his contact info.
Yeah, we'll have to have him on too now that he's got a bike.
He's riding a lot. He's been like several 100-mile days.
Oh, dang.
Wow. Yeah, he's put like 1,000 miles on the bike.
Yeah, this has been a good episode to have him on.
Yeah.
He's real hungry.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's hard when you get a new bike and you just want to get out and there's not enough time in the day to do it.
So is he fresh onto the scene? Like, is this his first?
I think so.
First straight bike, first Harley. He bought I think it's an 05 or 06 Road King.
Oh, very nice.
And he picked it up, and I planned on going out. It was in Morgan, and I said, "Hey, if you want to park it in the garage, we can go get it." It's like, "No, I want it home." Like,
yeah.
And I guess his neighbor has a motorcycle endorsement, so they drove out, and his neighbor rode it home.
Yeah,
awesome.
He's been riding a lot.
Make sure you're really close because it's kind of clipping out a little bit. I don't know if you want to lean forward. Sorry, we don't have another boom arm. We're working on it. So
when I gave you this mic, I only gave you the mic. I'm sorry.
He couldn't spare the extra expense of the arm.
Well, anyways, so yeah, we go out to dinner and have a good old time, and the rest is just history. But the funny thing is not even long after that, like Gary mentioned, my wife was pregnant, and we're close to having a baby, and then all of a sudden she was there 6 weeks early, and I was caught off guard, tons of medical bills, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to afford it. So I was talking to Gary and Paula, and I was like, I think I have to sell the bike. Like, I just can't afford, I just don't know if I can afford this right now. And
she said, let me talk to him.
Yeah.
Give me your phone. It was just, and the way she related it to being like, you're going to be in debt, and you selling the bike and whatever payment you had on the bike is going to be a drop in the bucket compared to the debt you're going to have if you were worried about your medical bills. So it really didn't make sense for him to totally give up his passion.
Yeah, totally.
However, she must have said something, because you went out and bought a Harley. Not only am I going to keep the bike,
actually, I am going to.
I'm going to buy another one.
I am going to sell it just so that I can buy a different one. And my wife curses me to this day because I guess leading up to it, I'd been looking at Harleys because Gary had convinced me that they weren't as bad as I had originally thought they were. They weren't, all the bad things that were said about them. And so I started looking, and Gary, before I continue, actually, what are you riding right now?
I have a 2008 CVO Electric Glide. It's the 105th anniversary. Did I say it was a CVO?
Yeah.
Sorry, I got to
No,
it's actually a 2008 Screaming Eagle. Yeah, I had to point out to Jeremy when he went and bought a Screaming Eagle air cleaner for his motorcycle that my whole motorcycle is a Screaming Eagle, and the registration says 2008 Screaming Eagle,
and mine just has the Screaming Eagle air filter.
Yeah,
he had to rub it in.
And then he sent me a picture or a video of a bear attacking a motorcycle in like Yellowstone, and it was a 2008 CVO anniversary, like my bike. I said, doesn't that bear have any respect for Screaming Eagles? Yeah, that was my first street bike. My background was dirt bikes. And so somebody told me, you don't buy an electric glide for your first bike. And I'm like, well, I did. And then they say, well, you don't buy a CVO. And I'm like, well, I did. And I knew there was some, not stigma, but there was a lot of stuff out there on people who buy CVOs.
Yeah.
And what's really funny, it was like the only one in my area, kind of in my price range. And I told Paula that I was going to go look at it. And what had happened was my daughter was graduating from high school. And she mentions just out of the blue, because we really hadn't talked about it, we should get a motorcycle. And I pull out my phone. Look at all the ones I've been looking at for the last 5 years.
Say less.
Yeah. And so I said, there's one in Roy I want to go look at. And so I went over there. And once I saw the paint, I think that's what hooks you, is the quality, the fit and finish.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you're able to, like, you can see them at the dealership. And the dealership's not really a good example for this, but when you see them at shows and they're other people's, you can't get real close and you can't touch them or sit on them. And so I saw that and I thought, this is unbelievable. And so I thought, so what I do whenever I do a big life-changing decision is I take my wife out to dinner. So we go out to dinner. I'm like, hey, I looked at that bike. And she's like, oh, you're serious about this? Because it was kind of like, yeah, I mean, we said, let's get a motorcycle. And I thought that was get a motorcycle. I thought you were giving me
that's the
direction. Yeah. And so what was really interesting is the guy who I bought it from was the second owner. He had a Road King or something smaller that he said in passing that his wife would ride on the other bike, but she wouldn't ride on the electric glide, which to me seems so counterintuitive because it's really a two-up bike, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so when he said that, I mentioned it to my wife, Paula, And I said, well, his wife doesn't ride with him. And she got this really like concerned look on her face. And I said, she says, well, why doesn't she ride? I said, I don't know. She says, well, what if, and she starts to panic. So she says, well, what if I don't like it or something? I said, well, it won't change the fact that we're buying a motorcycle. It'll just change if we're getting a touring 2-up or if I'm going to get something that's occasionally for her to ride. Mm. And so I said, well, I'll call the guy and I'll say, hey, do you think we could come by? And maybe I didn't even have a permit. And so she says, yeah, maybe he can give you a ride and you can see how, because she had back surgery and that's kind of why I wanted to get a touring bike. Just so if it didn't work out and it hurt her back, it was a character flaw with her. It wasn't the motorcycle's fault, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely a character flaw. And so
she's going to love you said that.
Yeah. All the way home from work that night, I'm trying to figure out how am I going to call this guy? And I couldn't. I just was like, so I just drove over to his house and I rang the doorbell. Hey, how's it going? I looked at it on Thursday night, so Friday night I went over, and he says, yeah, just bring her by tomorrow. And so she got on, rode around the neighborhood, and said, it's great. Well, she actually questioned me, well, what do I know about motorcycles? And that's when I had the conversation. You don't have to know anything. You just need to know if it hurts your back and that will change what we do or what bike we do.
Right.
Yeah, and so I went. There was a credit union right by his house, so I drove over there, and he followed me over to the shopping the market that had the America First in there, and we sat down. I got him the funds, and he rode the motorcycle to my house, and I drove him home. And then that's when I sat on it.
Oh, I thought you sat on it at his house.
No, I didn't even pick up I didn't even lift the kickstand off the ground.
Oh,
I didn't even start it. I didn't
know. And this is why when he got home, he goes, I made a really big mistake.
I think I've made a huge mistake. And what happened is, with the electric glide, it has the full fairing, and then it has the trunk and the bags. And all of that doesn't really add up to a whole lot of weight, but it's the center of gravity if you're not used to it.
Yeah.
And me being the dirt bike guy with none of that stuff, what happened was I was like sitting on it and I kind of lifted it up. I'm like, wow, this is really heavy. And then I looked over my shoulder and like you would have thought I got like scared or shocked because I did this big old jerk and I'm like, I'm going to drop it because I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't looking forward. I was so embarrassed. And I called my friend and I said, hey, he's like, did you get your bike? I'm like, yeah. He's like, how is it? I'm like, can you come over? He's like, have you ridden it? I'm like, no. So he's like, well, what's up? I said, just come over, please.
Yeah.
And he lived right around the block. And so he came over and he's like, what's your problem? I said, it's really heavy. And he's like, yeah, it's like 1,000 pounds. Like, hello? You didn't notice that before?
Especially when you have a backseat rider.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Because then you're adding them to the equation as well.
Absolutely. And I didn't have anybody on the back. I was just like, and I thought to myself, okay, I'll just put it in the garage and I'll make the payment. And this will just be like, wasn't that fun?
I'm never going to touch this ever again.
Too embarrassed to sell it off. No.
Keep it plugged into the battery tender and keep the paint all clean. So he's like, have you ridden it? And I said, no. And he's like, well, I'm not going to ride it. I'm like, please. He's like, what's your problem? Like, why are you being such a baby? I'm like, it's really heavy. He's like, yeah, I heard. So he gets on it and takes off, comes back. Okay, what's your concern? I said, well, he goes, you only feel it when you're not moving.
Yeah, stationary.
As soon as you take off, it goes away. I'm like, okay. And so because I was going to do 2-up riding, I was really, really legalistic about getting the Motorcycle Safety Foundation class. And then, going through all the steps and trying to make sure I did because if I were riding by myself, I feel a sense of responsibility for my family. But with my wife on the back, that was a responsibility that I never considered. Mm-hmm. And we were coming back from Pineview one night, and we stopped at Dillon's, which is kind of right on the way out of the canyon. And she's like, I'm not wearing my helmet back. I'm like, yes, you are. She's like, nope. And I'm like, okay. So I took side streets and I drove like 25 miles an hour because I'm like, I cannot wreck.
Yeah.
What do you mean she wasn't wearing her helmet? Why didn't you make her wear her helmet? Blah, 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 blah. And she said to me one time, this just shows you what a difference of viewpoints we have. I said, I just can't believe people would ride motorcycles without a helmet. And she goes, well, they ride motorcycles without a helmet because it's fun. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I'm trying to build myself up for full face all the time and all the gear all the time, right? But she's funny. She's like, people ride without helmets because it's fun. And they don't wear jackets because they like to feel the wind on their arms. I'm like, oh, you're a freak.
It's like one time I went to the Ace Hardware without wearing my helmet, and Zach happened to be, what were you guys over at Ken's?
I caught him in the parking lot as he was leaving. I texted him and was like, where's your helmet at?
Mm-hmm. I got home and I just started laughing when I looked at my phone. He's like, hey, I saw you riding without your helmet. And I was like, no, you didn't. He's like, yeah, I did. You left Ace. I watched you do it. It's like,
that's funny.
Yeah.
Especially when you see the guys with the helmet on the back on the sissy bar or something.
Yeah, it's like, what's the point?
There.
Yeah, that's going to help.
Why don't you just put it on?
Yeah.
Yep. He tried to call me out probably like 3 weeks later. He's like, hey, why aren't you wearing your helmet? I'm like, my bike's sitting in the garage, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't even think it was 3 weeks. I think it was like the next week.
Probably.
But like somebody was riding his exact same motorcycle and they were tall and wearing a helmet, and I was like, or they weren't wearing a helmet, but they flew past, and I swear it was you, but it wasn't him apparently.
That's funny.
Like my bike's sitting in the garage, man. It hasn't moved.
Yeah, it was funny. But anyways, so yeah, Garey really got me intrigued into the electric glide style. I really liked, like when I was looking originally, I really wanted a road glide as well, but I just couldn't afford the Rushmore fairing because I wasn't just not a huge fan of the older one.
Mm-hmm. So anything above 2015, right?
Yeah, 2015. Yeah, but they were just, out of my price range, especially for, like, I wanted to upgrade without changing much on my payment. And so, anyways, my wife and I were driving through Ogden, and somebody came in the opposite lane riding the exact same motorcycle I have now. And I'm like, that's the color. That's the one I want. And I was at home that same night just clicking through KSL, and it popped up, and it was in my price range. And I texted the guy that instant, and it was like midnight. I was like, hey, can I meet you tomorrow about the bike?
He's like, don't you mean today?
Yeah.
And I don't think he responded until the next day, but I was so excited. And that whole morning leading up to even waiting, I don't even think he'd responded yet, but that whole morning I was like on the phone with my bank, like, hey, I need to get it pre-approved for this amount for this motorcycle, and I need it by the end of the workday because I'm buying a motorcycle, or I want to buy a motorcycle. And so I went to their house and I test drove it, and I loved it. It was amazing. And I was like, hey, I'll be back. I'm going to go talk to my wife. And my wife was still at the hospital. Mm. Well, she had been released from the hospital, but our daughter hadn't. But she was there, like, just hanging out in the NICU. And I came up, and she was holding our daughter in her arms. And
put the baby down. I got to talk to you about something really important.
no, I was like,
can you please pay attention to me?
I was like, hey, can I talk to you about something? And she's like, what? And I'm like,
I love you.
I so much. You know that? And I was like, hey, you know that motorcycle I showed you last night at midnight? And she's like, yeah, maybe. I was like half asleep. And I was like, well, I kind of want to buy it. And she's holding our daughter. And of course, she's like happy mom right now. She's just holding her baby. And she looks at me and she's like, you did this on purpose, didn't you?
Just say no. Try it.
I was like, maybe, kind of. I mean, yes, but no. Yeah. So anyway, she's like, look, if it's the right price and you feel like it's the right time, then you can go for it. And I was like, you're the best wife on earth.
I love you so much.
I love you so much.
Hey, little baby. See you later.
I'm going to buy a motorcycle. Bye.
So that's the ironic part about like full circle. This story is I had the Fury, and I was thinking about getting rid of it, but if it weren't for Paula, this podcast might not exist. I might not be riding right now. So Paula, this one goes out to you, dedicated to you. This episode, I owe you everything. So
yeah. Well,
hopefully that makes up for us calling her Gary's wife last time.
I played it for her on our drive up to Idaho last week. She's like, Gary's wife.
Gary's wife.
I see how I rank.
He's not even talking about me.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. So
What's really cool about that story is, in hindsight, it sounds like a huge financial mistake.
right.
But it all worked out. You were able to sell your bike, and get into, like, what's neat about your perspective is you're like, you call it drinking the Harley Kool-Aid, but you're so excited about the whole brand. And like, I hadn't gone to dealerships as much as I had with you, You're like, hey, check out, all the paint colors and all these things. And so I think that's really neat to see that it ignited a passion in you, because I think we all, have that love of the freedom you feel. I heard somewhere one time, owning a motorcycle is you're giving yourself permission, because nobody else can. They can say yes or no, but it's like ultimately they're like, I'm going to do this for me. And sometimes it might be considered or seen as selfish. But if you have a wife that likes to ride or wants to ride with you, then that's something that opens you guys up for those adventures. And so it's kind of neat to see how much your passion, what I mean? How because if it wasn't for the brand, we all have motorcycles we like, but I think that whole, the Harley Davidson motor clothes, they probably sell 5 times as much clothing as they do motorcycles.
Oh, yeah.
Probably.
And so it's like, you look at the stuff and it's kind of that, it's just neat. I started going to dealerships when we go out of town just to get the poker chips, and to see what they have and what's available. And, they're like, what do you have? And you tell them, oh, cool. Let's talk about trading. I'm like, I don't want to trade it in. They're like, have a seat. What do you want?
You came in, you must want a new bike.
Yeah.
Now's the time. We're doing extra on them.
Yeah.
Trade-in.
We'll match your monthly payment.
Yeah.
For a loan that's 18 years long.
Yeah.
No kidding.
How much rope do you want?
Yeah. So I don't know. Is it?
Yeah, it's one of mine.
Anyway, so yeah, I like you said, I call it drinking the Kool-Aid, but there's just not the same community, I feel like, in motorcycling as you do have in Harley Davidson riding. I owned a Yamaha, but I wasn't like, I'm a Yamaha guy. And I owned a Honda, but I wasn't like, I'm a Honda guy. So definitely a different aspect in general. And I feel like even within the Harley Davidson community, there's different subsets, you know?
Oh, for sure.
You've got the people that love chop bikes. You got people that love touring bikes, tricking out dynas. Like, you've got everything under the sun. Mm-hmm. And so pretty much if you want to ride motorcycles, there's a community for you inside of the Harley Davidson community. And I think that obviously there's kind of a overarching stigma or whatever, the way people perceive Harley Davidson riders to be, that kind of sometimes keeps people from wanting to join it, like with me. But then when you look past that and see what really is happening, and you just go out and enjoy the people you get to be with, it's just so much more. Yeah.
Well, that's a neat thing that brings us together is, you know, you can go to a bike night or go to something, and it seems like everybody is fractured on other manufacturers. But I think the Harley guys kind of, even if you don't know each other, people can appreciate the bike that you're on because they know it, you know. And I like all motorcycles, you know. I sent you a picture of
last night.
Kawasaki ZRX 1200. I'm like, this is my next non-Harley. You know, there's all kinds of different ones, but I think the Harley thing is what kind of ignites that passion because you have so much support. There's Harley dealers everywhere. You can get the clothing and the helmets and all the brand stuff if you want that. But then, you know, you have a bike that, the nice thing is the bikes that we have are older, but they're not going to lose any more in value.
Yeah.
You know, they'll kind of drop and then they settle out. And
that's what it is. Unless you put like 1 million miles on them.
Yeah, you know, and if you put a bunch of accessories on them and stuff like that, it's probably harder to get that out of it. But I think that's part of the fun with the bike that I have, the Screaming Eagle. It's all upgrades, so I really can't do anything to it. So I really need to get another bike that I can upgrade.
Trick out. Speaking of which, so not long after Gary and I met, I don't even think that we had started working together yet. No, we hadn't. Definitely not. But Gary gave me a key to his garage to allow me to store my motorcycle in his garage over the winter. And that was a really bad thing for me because I did nothing but go almost, I swear, like every day after work to work on my bike to like clean it or to buy pieces.
And Golden Spike Harley's on the way to my house.
It's like,
Look what I got.
I'm driving home from Salt Lake. I stop at Golden Spike Harley Davidson on Ogden. And then, I don't know, 10-minute drive, if that, to Gary's house. And then I'm bolting on stuff.
I'd come home from work and I'm like, oh, Jeremy's here. You're like, hey.
What's he doing today?
It's the middle of winter, so it's super cold.
Yeah.
And you're in there tinkering and yeah, it was funny.
And my wife would call and I'm like, oh, I'm just at Gary's. And she's like, again?
Is he okay?
Fourth time this week.
He fell. He broke a hip. He's fine. I'm just feeding him.
Yeah. What did you say when we were talking earlier today that you felt bad that you almost felt guilty for?
Oh yeah, I cost your family a whole lot of money giving you that key.
There's one expensive key.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. All right. So one thing that we wanted to talk about today was some rides that we've been on that we loved, and then some rides that we're thinking about going on. Mm-hmm. So Zach, what rides have you been on that are of note that you kind of stand out to you?
So for me, I haven't really experienced much outside of the state of Utah. But my favorite one probably so far has been the Cottonwood ride up into Heber City. And then it's called the Alpine Loop. And so you start in Cottonwood Canyon and you drive up and then you go over into Guardsman's Pass. And then you drop back down into Midway and then you go into Heber. And then as you drive outside of Heber, then you hop back into the mountains. You head back up and it's a really beautiful ride. And it doesn't matter what time of the year it is. It's spring, fall, it's beautiful just to, be out in nature and to experience, the changing of the seasons and the colors on the trees and the fresh air and, wind therapy on the bike. It's probably one of my favorite ones. And then I did a little variation of it. And instead of heading back into heading down Provo Canyon, we took off and went out down towards Strawberry Reservoir and took a big loop out that way and went out to a bunch of little podunk towns and turned around. And on the way back, my cousin ran out of gas.
Oh, that's
in a city called Hannah. Yeah, we ran out of gas at Hannah and we rolled up to the dinkiest little gas station in the world and we didn't. I mean, the pumps were probably from the 40s, and so we're we don't know how to use these. And so, we sat there for probably about 10 minutes trying to figure it out, and then fired the bikes back up and rode back up in. But those are probably my two favorite rides that I've done so far.
Yeah. Speaking of gas stations, do you know that? I'm sure both of you have seen it. There's a gas stations. I think it's a Sinclair, maybe. People on Utah Facebook's motorcycle riding Facebook pages, they post there all the time. Do either of you know where that is?
Yeah, it's the south end of Utah Lake. So.
Oh yeah, down in Alberta.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I see it like a million times.
Yeah, it's an old rustic looking building. Yeah.
They've opened it up now.
Just because of that.
Well, I guess, it's always been an icon, but now I've seen videos where they open it up and it's a little garage inside and it's all period correct.
Huh.
Yeah, that one. Then there's one in Scipio that is a garage with the old pumps out in front of. Scipio is probably like 120 miles south of Salt Lake, and then you head east maybe 5 miles. It's just in the middle of the street. You're like, what is that? Mm-hmm. Super cool.
Those are the cool things I like to see on rides. Just like old stuff that not a lot of people get to see.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, one of my favorite rides is. So I'm from Cache Valley originally, and so obviously I think there's some sentimental, like thinking of home and whatnot. But if you take from here in Brigham City and you head straight through Honeyville and Deweyville, and then you run into Riverside, there's a Sinclair there that we've been to on a ride, and you head east towards Cache Valley over the Valley View Highway. And then as you're dropping down into Cache Valley, you'll have a crossroads. So the highway will continue on, and you can either turn right and you can go to like Mendon and Wellsville, or you can turn left and you can follow the bench all the way to like Trenton and Cornish and why am I brain farting?
That's the way we took coming back from Lewiston.
Yeah. So that's the route I take. So you take that road out and head out Newton. That's what it's called. Yeah, you head out all the way there, and then you cut through Trenton, and you follow the rest of the mountain over just west of the north. Yeah, just close to the northern border of Utah. You can turn in, and you'll pass the chicken farms on the way to Lewiston. And there's just so many old buildings and little teeny communities that, most people will never visit in their life.
Yeah.
And I just love riding right next to the big old Wellsville Mountain, like the Rocky Mountains on the west side of the valley, and then making it to somewhere I would call home, Lewiston, where a lot of my family's from, and we spend every year there on the 4th of July. I think I've only missed 3 years in my entire life, the 4th of July in Lewiston. And one of those was COVID, and 2, I wasn't even in the state. So maybe 4, because I think I might have been gone for 1. Yeah, I was gone for 1 when I went and joined the Army. So 4. And yeah, I love that. And Lewiston's got some small businesses like that. Like you've got tires and right on Main Street and Center in Lewiston. And I think it's changed name now. I think it's like Julie's or something, but same like old local market that they've had there forever.
Yeah.
And so that's some fun stuff. And it's all a bunch of farm country. So you'll see animals and you'll see silos, old barns, on the brink of tipping over, but they've been standing like that for 100 years. Yeah. The other cool thing I like about Cache Valley is you have all of these food factories, and a lot of them have shops connected to them, so you can go and buy surplus or like mal-made seconds, I guess is what they'd call them. So like in Lewiston, you have Casper's ice cream that makes the Fat Boy. So you can go buy like a box of Fat Boys for nothing.
What's funny is their marketing for those. It says not so pretty, but oh so tasty. And they sell them at gas stations in Ogden too.
Oh, really? They'll buy them?
They buy them and they bring them down. And we were commenting on that in Paula. We were driving and she said it out loud and everybody laughed because nobody really processed what it said until she said it out loud. Some of them don't have, like their ice cream sandwiches, so some don't have half the sandwich.
Yeah, or it's like half the cookie, like it'll be broken.
Or the packaging got messed up on the conveyor. And, but they're still, they're so tasty.
Well, here's the funny thing is, all growing up, that's all I ever ate when it came to Fat Boys. I never had one that was perfect.
Like a nice one.
Well, I just never knew. I didn't know. I just thought that's how they came as a little kid. But my dad would just go out and buy like a whole box of them for like $20, and there's like 100 of them or something back then. I don't know.
Ridiculous amount.
And so you've got that, and then just on the border of Lewiston and Richmond, you've got Pepperidge Farm, and you can go there and buy just heaping bags of goldfish or any cracker that Pepperidge Farm makes or any cookie, and you just, here's this 5-pound bag of goldfish for like $3, and and maybe it's cracked or the snack doesn't smile back that time, and so that's why I had to get kicked out. Like, it's not smiling back. Get out of line.
This one's got a frown on its face.
What else? And then Gosner's. You got Gosner's cheese over on the west side of Logan on 10th West, and my family loves the cheese curd, the squeaky cheese. Like, people think I'm really weird because I'll just take a pile of it and put it on a plate and microwave it and just melt it down and salt and pepper, just eat that stuff. I love it.
Their ice cream is really rich.
Yeah.
We made ourselves sick one time going up there.
Yeah, I think it would be the most fun ride ever to organize something as a community and do like a Cache Valley industry ride and make it a charity or something. But just start in Wellsville at the Park and Ride, and then ride out, take 10th West, hit Gosner's, and then, go get Gosner's, then jump back on 2nd North, head out and take that road that I was telling you about, enjoy the scenery, get out to Lewiston, hit up Casper's, and then there's also a meat packing factory called Lauer's in Richmond, and they have samples and they have really good smoked meats or prepped meats for barbecues and whatnot. Hit them up, and then come down or hit Pepperidge Farm. Just like hit all of those different factories. Make it a big event. Make it a charity. Get those businesses to put in on it, and as a community, raise some money towards a good cause. I think that'd be a really fun activity.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So, right now, obviously haven't done a whole lot towards it. I'm trying to get contacts at those places. Like I have one contact at Casper's, and then I have an old contact at Pepperidge Farm. So I gotta verify if that one still exists. And I just think it would be super cool to get a good group of people riding motorcycles, having fun, but doing it for a good cause. Mm-hmm. So, well, I'll have to do some more research and figure something out, but that's one that I've been wanting to do really bad.
Yeah.
And I'll bet that there's people in the community that have never been to those businesses.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, like, I never even knew this was here.
Yeah. Well, and then that's a good reason for those businesses to, like, donate to charity, donate to that kind of event, because then that's a lifelong customer.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to be me and my wife, we literally had a day off the last week for Juneteenth. And we went to every single one of those, grabbing all the things that we like to get, you know, grabbing the cheese curd and then getting ice cream sandwiches and getting crackers and whatever at Pepperidge Farm and just making a day trip out of it. Like, people do it, and I think it would be really good for them and really good for the community.
Yeah. Yeah. Make sure to get your name out there. Advertisement.
Yeah. So, anyways, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we go along with these old historic buildings out in Hannah, the place where we ran out of gas. There's a biker barn or like a diner.
Oh, really?
And when we were out there was probably 20, 30 bikes out there, and they were all just having, you know, their morning breakfast or lunch. And, you know, it's just cool that, you know, everybody could gather like that. I mean, and we go back and talk about this where, you know, owning a Harley Davidson, there's some sort of sense of a family. Whether you own the bike or not, I feel like Harley's got a huge community. Anybody's welcome. Mm-hmm. You walk in their door and you don't even own one, and they welcome you as one of their own, you know?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say 100% of people that you meet on the road are the same way, but
but you'll find that anywhere.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of people that you meet are really friendly. They put off that family vibe, and you just get along with them, and you can talk with them and chew the fat for who knows how long, you know?
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's exactly right. I mean, that's the only reason Gary and I are friends today is, like, we just sat and talked in common. Sat and talked about motorcycles for hours, you know. But yeah, any rides that stood out to you in your experience and ones that you got on your mind?
Well, I went to Panguitch 2 summers ago, and it's about 300 miles from here, so it's a good ride.
Good ride.
And we kind of went through, we skirted the interstate, and we rode pretty much through, went through Weber Canyon, out into Heber, down through Provo Canyon, and then when we got close to Spanish Fork, we were on 89. Then we went into Price Canyon. And then just took the side streets, or not the side streets, but State Street pretty much. And it's like the same where you go into these little towns and they go from 65, and then you see the sign for 45, and it goes to 35 within like a quarter mile. And so you're like, every little town you go into has a little bit different. And then, so when we rode down there, I was all about riding not on the interstate,
right,
and trying to ride the back roads. And then the next day we did the Scenic Byway 12, which is also a 300-mile loop. And you start in Panguitch and you go into Zion National Park. You go past it, and then up into a place called Boulder, and then Torrey, and kind of this big loop, which the first day we rode 300 miles, the next day we rode 300 miles, and this was when I was pretty new. Maybe had the bike 2 years, and the first year I rode with a permit. Like, so I had to do all. I couldn't ride on the freeway, and I couldn't ride after 10 p.m. or whatever it was. Couldn't have a passenger. And so now, when we had done that, there's so much to take in that you're not overwhelmed, but you're like the scenery. I mean, we live in a beautiful state.
Oh, yeah.
And so what had happened was we had done this loop, and when I came home, Paula didn't go with me. And when I came home, I looked up on YouTube, Scenic Byway 12, and there was not a whole lot on motorcycles, but there were a couple in cars. And I start watching it, and she's like, "Weren't you just there?" I'm like, "I didn't see any of this." She's like, "Well, what are you talking about?" I'm like, "Everybody goes going like 75 miles an hour." And I was, like I said, I was
just trying to keep up.
I'm just trying to keep up with the pack and trying to, not, miss a corner. But there's a part where it seems like the earth drops from the road, and you're kind of just, and I'm like, I had to figure out how that was, and to see, because what happens is you're on a flat in the canyon kind of going, and you have on either side, and all of a sudden it goes like this, and the road continues on the peak of this hill.
Oh, dang.
And so I'm like, I had to see this, because I was like, I was just like focused on the bike in front of me. It was really funny. She's like, "Weren't you just there?" I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't see any of this."
That is definitely hard, where you're trying to focus, especially like you said earlier, when you have a passenger and you know that you're responsible for not only your life but theirs. It's sometimes hard to take it in. I mean, we've gone out, you and I, over to Tremont to eat at the grill several times on the motorcycles, and it's a beautiful ride, but sometimes I don't take it all in. But another one that I did once, or actually, was the one, maybe I didn't end up making it out there on the bike, but I did later in a car. But we were wanting to go out to out west of here, Promontory Point.
Oh yeah, Golden Spike.
Yeah, like head out to Golden Spike.
That's a fun run.
Yeah, it is.
Because I kind of want to hit it, like head out. I know it's going to be right in our eyes, but like hit it in the evening before the sun sets, and then ride back as the sun is setting. I think that would be kind of, I don't know, magical.
Yeah, my wife and I ran that last year, and because I mean, I'm from Salt Lake County, so everything up here is all brand new territory, and so I'm like, hey, I've never been out to where, Promontory, where they actually drove the Golden Spike. And she's like, well, do you want to go out there? I was like, I sure would. And I think it'd be, a fun little motorcycle ride. Like, we should totally do it. And so, I mean, we took our sweet time. I mean, we were moseying. Nobody else was on the road with us.
Yeah,
but
it's pretty empty out there after you get past Corinne.
Yeah. But I mean, it's one of those things where you can just sit there and enjoy everything around you, because it's completely different as you turn around and come back. Because then as you're moving your way back, you're starting to get back into the greens and the blues and the mountains.
Like get away from the desert, essentially.
Yeah, it's all pretty dry.
But as you head out to Promontory, you're getting into the red cliffs and the sand and the desert, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah. So do they have like some sort of like visitor center or something?
Yeah, they have the Golden Spike Visitor Center.
And is it open year round?
You can go there year round.
Yeah.
Right, but the visitor center's not open.
Yeah, the parking lot's open. There's no gate. So if you wanted to go out and ride and they weren't open, you could still do your ride and park out there. And the visitor center they do have, but you can walk out to the railroad track without going through. It's kind of just to the north of the building, so you can kind of wander around. There also has the Thiokol missile garden. I don't know what they call that, with all the missiles in the parking lot. We kind of stop out there and look at those.
Yeah. I've been out there once when I was, I don't know, probably like 12 or 13. I got out of school for it, and we my grandpa and my brother and my sister and I, we all went out, and because they used to do, I don't even think they do it anymore, but they used to do rocket launches. They had like a monthly, like, hey, we're testing the rockets we've designed. Let's make an event out of it. I think it was free. You're just standing out in the middle of the desert waiting for a countdown.
Yeah.
And it's like quite the buildup. Like everybody gets up there early, like hours early, and like puts up sunshades and drinks and eats and has a good time until it goes off. And we stayed there for like 3 hours just waiting for this rocket to go off. And it was like 10, 9, 8, 3, 2. And then they stopped and it's like, today's launch has been canceled.
Oh, no.
I'm like,
Due to a lightning warning.
yeah, I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
We don't have enough people in the desert waiting. So we're going to hold off till next week. Come back.
It was literally the last 10 seconds and they canceled it. And then the next week came when they'd rescheduled it, and my mom was like, hey, Grandpa's heading back out again. Do you want to go with him? I'm like, no.
I wasted 3 hours last week.
Not only no.
I just like, it was so hot. I mean, there's no tree in
shade.
sight. It's just the desert, and it's just hot as can be. And I was not, at 12 or 13, I was like, I'm not doing that again. That was dumb.
Yeah.
I'm sure as an adult, I mean, it'd be fun to see it because I've seen videos of it since, and I was like, that's pretty cool. But
I think they have the sled out there where they test the engines too.
no, they still do that?
I don't know.
That's what they used to do. That's what it was.
Oh, so that was the launch you were going for?
Yeah.
Was launching the engine?
Yeah.
That's
So
wild.
they have it's just on the side of this like small mountain, and I think they've got like a exhaust tunnel behind it, and they just launch. And it stays stationary and just fires backwards into this tunnel or whatever. I mean, this is a long time ago, so I don't remember if that's exactly how it was, but it's something along those lines.
Yeah.
Just to like make sure that they're working properly. Because I think back then, I mean, do you remember what year the shuttles were retired? I mean, that was during the Obama administration, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so I mean, they were still using the space shuttle
like
back
that.
then, so I'm sure that they were still making sure that they had proper usage before they would send shuttles up or whatever to the space station. So, anyways, way off topic. I want to go out there again. It'd be fun.
Now, if you do get out there to the promontory point, I'd make sure that you get there when the trains meet. So they do a theatrical view.
Oh, really?
Of like how it would have been when the two trains came together. And they actually drove the golden spike into the ground. And so, I mean, they don't come from coast to coast, but
right.
But they come from
trains.
out of view, and they come back in, and they meet in the middle, and they have this little play that goes on.
Oh, dang.
And then they leave the trains there, and you can go over and you can check them out, and they've got platforms and stuff that you can look at. It's super cool.
That is cool.
So, have you seen it?
No, they had the 150th anniversary a couple years back, and they were doing a lot of stuff at Union Station and Ogden.
Oh, gotcha.
They're bringing a train they call Big Boy back for the 4th of July and then Pioneer Day.
This year?
Yeah. And
Is this year the 150th?
No.
Or that was a couple years ago?
Yeah, a couple years ago. So that's kind of a neat thing. There's so much history here, and it just seems like even if you've never visited Utah, there's a lot of stuff that Utah has done, the people of Utah and their history that affect the rest of the country.
Oh, yeah.
I just think it's crazy that they could get both those train tracks to line up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, hey, you're off, Larry. What?
You're off 3 feet. We're not going to make
Oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing.
Rip it up. Start it all over again.
Train derails right in front of the whole audience.
They weren't moving very fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the coolest parts about our state is that it doesn't really matter what part of the state you're in. There's always something to visit.
Oh, yeah.
You could be in, the bottom, the southeast corner and you got Lake Powell, or you could come up here to the northwest corner and you got Promontory, or, it doesn't matter where you're at. There's always something that you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. One that I've been dying to do, and we have to get it done before this season. And I want to do it as a group and have Seth and his wife come and meet up and ride
The Bear Lake.
the Bear Lake Loop.
Yeah.
So what's the route that you took when you went? Because you go up through Preston.
So we would go through Logan Canyon into Garden City. Then we'd go north into Liberty in Ovid.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would head west into Preston. And then you would drive down from Preston into Smithfield. And then into Logan, back into Sardine Canyon, back down.
Yeah, I kind of want to do a reverse loop.
Yeah, I've never been on the east side of the lake.
And that's what I want to add in, because like when I was researching it, I think if we, take that loop that I love so much through Cache Valley, head up through Honeyville, Deweyville on the west bench of Cache Valley, and then hit Preston, take it over to Liberty, and then once you hit Liberty, you can head to Montpelier, heading east, and then I think there's a road that goes around the whole lake, because the Boy Scout camp there, they do the 50-mile ride around the whole lake, so there's got to be a road. I'm not sure how well maintained those roads are, because on the map it's not as defined, because most of the business and everything is on the west side of the lake. Mm-hmm. But I think it'd be awesome to take a loop all the way around.
We've also come back down through Woodruff.
Yeah.
And then into eventually Monte Cristo. That's a long ride that way. The Preston ride's nice. The scenery is beautiful, and the aspen trees, the trunks of them are like 1.5 feet in diameter. They're huge. I mean, not big compared to some trees, but
right. But don't aspens take forever?
Yeah,
to grow or
and so
something?
I'm like, holy cow, these are some old trees and big.
Yeah.
But that's nice because you're riding next to a river. It's just
Nice and cool.
You kind of geek out and you just pinch yourself. You can't believe you're riding these rides that people
Yeah. People travel all over the country to get to it. Yeah. I think, speaking a quick thing about aspens that reminded me, I think Utah is home to like the largest living organism, because there's like a aspen orchard that's all basically one tree, because they do the sprouts. That's how they grow. So it's all technically one tree. And yeah, so those old aspen forests are all basically one organism. So I think
That's crazy.
those are really cool trees to go on a ride and see.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, take that, California, with your redwoods. We got our tree's bigger, just short.
Just because we can't drive our car through our tree.
Yeah, when did I go through up into Bear Lake? Like
Last season?
no, it was earlier this year.
Oh, really?
I want to say it was like February. There was still snow on the ground when I think they had just reopened the road after it had closed because it had just snowed.
And you were on the bike?
Uh-huh. And
That's cold.
I'm out. It was cold. Yeah, my wife and I, maybe I should call her Kayla so she doesn't freak out.
Yeah.
Kayla and I,
Zach's wife.
Yeah, Zach's wife. We rode up just through Logan Canyon because once again I've never been over on this side of a lot of things.
Yeah, everything's new.
And I mean, just seeing the snow on the ground that was still, I want to say 4 or 5 feet tall, and it was cold, but it was fun.
Yeah.
And then you just come over the top of that peak, and then the lake's just right there, and you're like, wow.
It's a view. That's a fun.
Wow.
That's a fun one to just for the view, and then you just have all those switchbacks all the way down to the lake.
Yep.
So I think it'd be fun.
I definitely think we need to do that.
It's just, I feel like life gets so busy, and there's only so many weekends in the summer. Because, it's hard where we all work and trying to organize everyone's schedules and get it to happen. Because, and July is busy for my family. We're gonna be out of town the next 2 weekends, maybe 3 weekends.
Yeah.
So we'll get it figured out.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest parts about riding in Utah is you've only got so many
small
weeks.
window. And it's really frustrating if you're making payments.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're paying full coverage.
Yep. You're paying
you're
for
like,
4 months that you're not doing
It's just
anything.
sitting. Yeah.
I can go out and wash it and wax it. But that's it.
I said one of the many dumb things to my wife one time over the winter. I went out there and I hadn't put any of the Stapel in it. And so I poured a little bit in there and I started it up. And I was like, holy cow, this motorcycle is loud. And so I go into the house. I'm like, my motorcycle's really loud. She's like,
Well, duh.
are you stupid? Like, you've owned it for how long? And I'm like, well, I'm never in the garage with it without a helmet behind the bike.
Right.
You know, like you were saying about pulling your baffles out.
That was loud.
My bike is really loud, and inevitably we go on a ride with people, and they'll come up, man, your bike is loud. I'm like, I can't hear it because I'm in front.
You're
I'm in
riding
front
away
of the
from
pipe.
it. Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, I've been told.
That's the biggest thing is that you don't want to be the one that's behind the loud bike ever.
The one that's compensating for something. Hey, fellas.
Yeah.
What was I going to say about that? Yeah, I actually called my insurance agent, who's my mom's cousin, and I was like, hey, is there like any way that I can like pause my insurance while like winter's going on? He's like, well, the way they calculate the insurance is, you know, they take how much they think that you need throughout the year, and then instead of making you pay for it during just the summer, they spread it out so you can make it easier to afford. I'm like, well, I guess that makes sense.
Level pay.
But I don't want to pay for it during the
But don't you understand? I can't use it, so it's not fair.
At the same time, though, you don't know what's going to happen to it during those 4 or 5 months.
True.
You know, it
Yeah,
could
like
be
a tree
sitting.
falls on the garage or something.
Yep. Snow collapses the roof. Anything could happen.
I talked to my friend who originally got me the insurance when I first got the motorcycle, and she worked for one of the credit unions and got a loan through her and all that stuff. And when I paid the bike off, I said, well, do I have to have full coverage? And she's like, well, do you want to pay for it or do you want the insurance? And I'm like, okay, they can pay for it.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
No,
I thought, oh, that's true. You know, like,
I don't know. I don't think I won't.
I guess if
pay
you're
full
already
coverage on
used to the
everything.
payment,
Yeah.
you know, what's it going to be? $20, $25 a month cheaper?
Yeah. It doesn't, I don't feel like it saves you that much.
Yeah, if it's money that you don't see, it's not going to hurt you.
Yeah. You've already spent it.
I don't know if I've met anyone that rides motorcycles that doesn't have full coverage.
I can tell you 3 right now that you've met.
Seth and his dad.
Yep. Every single one is not registered. They run
Allegedly.
They run the dealer plates.
They run
right?
dealer plates.
Yeah.
So in all reality, yes, they are registered.
Yeah.
Themselves are not registered.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. I would be heartbroken if I got in a wreck and I was able to ride again and, you know, it wasn't paid, like, wasn't covered.
Yeah. Basically, you lost your bike. Now you have to start over.
Yeah. Like, I just spent the last 4 years or 5 years or whatever paying off this bike, and then I have it paid off, and then now I'm SOL with like, okay, well, you don't get any money towards your next bike.
There goes $18,000.
Yep.
So I think that we'll see what happens. I'll worry about that when I have to make that decision. But here's the thing.
Or you could just never pay it off and just keep buying new ones. And then you're like, I've already spent the money, baby. I've already spent the money. It's all good.
Gary, we're already on thin ice.
I'm like jumping up and down.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is typically most people don't jump, but you do. That's what's fun about you. You could be like, you should get another one. He'd be like, hell yeah, I'm going to get another one. Check it out. I'm going to call the guy tomorrow. Okay, cool. And I'll be like, you hear what Jeremy did? Can you believe that guy?
He just bought a 2018. Next week he's going to be in a 23.
You can tell my wife loves me because if she didn't, there's no way she'd stick around.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can see it with the podcast, with riding motorcycles. I'm the hobbyist. You know, I love learning new things and trying new things, getting out there, meeting new people. It's just that's what brings me joy in life. When I'm not working, when I'm not spending quality time with my family, like I'm out learning new things. My sister-in-law said that was one of her favorite things about me, like because my in-laws, they do this fun thing for birthdays where they, in our group chat, they'll be like, okay, you're X amount of years old. For every year, the family's going to rotate and like say their favorite thing or whatever. And she's like, I love that when you try new things, like you really try to learn them and get in and not try to act like you know what you're talking about. That's what I love about this podcast, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do it, is that I don't want to be the expert in all things. I just like learning. And so to be able to bring people into the podcast and have them be their experts in their field to share their voice and what they know to all these other people that want to learn about these given topics or whatever. So we'll see if we'll be able to pull it off. I'm excited. And so I'm grateful that Garey was able to come and meet with us, and I'm hoping we'll be able to have him on again. There's a few other topics that I really want to talk with him about, but we're coming up on the end of our episode today. But thank you again.
Yeah, definitely.
If you guys have any questions for Garey, just hit up the Discord. Like I said last time, we got all of our links in the Instagram page. Got where you can listen to the podcast if you're not really a Spotify person. Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, YouTube. It's all there. So we're trying to build the community as quick as we can. Make sure that we have the best quality. If you love the show, please reach out and give suggestions. People you'd like to hear in the community and have them on. Or if you're interested, we can do something like this. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.